you believe in the existence of extraterrestrials? Tell me I'm crazy.
Mulder, you're crazy.
I can't. Not as long as the truth is out there. I want to believe.
Welcome to the X-Files with your host Mark, me and Becky. Hi Becky.
Hello.
Right, so these X-Files are just awesome. I just have to say that off the bat. See, I'm really digging watching these again. I'm hoping we're enthusing a few people to join in with us. But man, we've got some good episodes to discuss tonight. We are covering the episodes 5, 6, 7 and 8 of Season 2 at this time. And we're starting with Duane Barry. Let's have a little bit of music to get us in the mood for the episode and jump right in.
Take a little walk to the edge of town and go across the track where the viaduct looms like a bird of doom as it shifts and cracks. Where secrets lie in the border fires and the humming wires. Yeah, man, you know you're never coming back. Across the square, across the bridge, past the mills, past the stacks. On a gathering storm comes a tall, handsome man in a dusty black coat with a red right hand.
Okay, so Duane Barry, directed and written by Chris Carter. I could be wrong, but I think this might be Chris Carter's directorial debut.
Yep, it is.
That's kind of amazing. He's done a great job, actually. First broadcast in the US on the 14th of October 1994. Let's just talk about our general feelings, and we'll go through it a bit more point by point. How do you feel about this episode?
I really enjoyed it, and it's the first two-parter, isn't it?
It is the first two-parter. It's a sequential two-parter. I mean, there was the Tombs one, which was kind of two parts, but separated by about 15 episodes. But this is the first two-part story for sure, yes. It's kind of a bottle episode in that it's about a hostage situation, so it's kind of not quite in one set, but it's kind of locked down quite tightly. Once Duane Barry escapes anyway and gets to the hostage situation, I quite enjoyed this one. I thought there were some great special effects as well. We'll get into that point by point. I also have to say that the job done by the actor playing Duane Barry, who is Steve Railsback, was pretty good. And I also thought that the Agent Kasdan, who was in this, played by CCH Pounder, was pretty damn good. She's one of these women actresses. I think I've seen her in loads of things, but I can't pinpoint her. But when I checked it out, I hadn't seen her in that much. She's just very striking in this. I thought she did a good job.
She's in The Shield as well, isn't she? That's where I knew her from predominantly.
I don't know The Shield, you see, so I knew I wouldn't know her from that. I haven't seen a single episode, but she was pretty solid. So, good actress, good presence, and quite convincing in the sort of role she was playing. You know, she felt like she was like someone with power and who was taking charge and stuff like that. I kind of liked it. Let's start off at the beginning then. So we get Duane Barry ranting about what happened to him, and he makes his escape from a psychiatric facility. I was quite interested in this psychiatric facility. I don't know if they're the orderlies, but they were carrying guns.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's usual. That seems a bit extreme, really. His escape seemed quite easy. That may be a plot inconvenience, but I really liked the scenes where he was talking about what happened to him with the little aliens. He's lying on the bed and they're kind of surrounding him, and that was really cool. And then we see similar shots a bit later on in the episode. I thought they were good costumes or prosthetics or whatever they were. I like those shots, and it was kind of a dark delve into this man's mind, really. There was a few dark jokes in this episode. I noted the shop where they got taken hostage. Did you notice its name?
No.
It was Travel Time. So, so time travel backwards or something like that. There was a bit of stuff like that. Now, if I remember rightly, they called him Mulder because Dwayne Barry's going on about, he was abducted, and Mulder knows all about that. But Mulder goes in, and basically she said, "Do you believe this kind of stuff?" And he says, "Well, why is that an issue?" And he says, "Well, we're here to save lives, not investigate that." And we've got basically Mulder's dragged into to sort of begin negotiations. It's a bit confusing, really. But they have him there to be sort of more empathetic, I think, with Dwayne Barry. So Mulder's says he needs to know more about him. And there's kind of a cool scene where he's being prepped. Sorry, that's a bit later on, but where he actually goes in, they're prepping him to go in with a wire and stuff like that. I really liked they were like going through it and telling him what to do. There was some nice procedural stuff presented in this episode that I kind of liked. It felt genuine to me. I mean, I don't know anything about it. It had that feel, didn't it?
Yeah, it was nice exposition through Mulder. Like he says, he doesn't have any experience really of a hostage situation, so it was a nice way to get that exposition in a very realistic way.
Yeah. It was cool, and they're kind of bringing it up to speed. Mulder gets stuck in right in the middle of it. There was a slightly odd line from this agent who, presumably has dealt with this situation before. She goes, "This guy's a psycho. We just want to keep him on the phone." It seemed a bit simplistic, but I guess if you've seen this over and over again, this guy's a psycho. We just want to stop him killing people. That's all we're interested in doing it. Gillian Anderson in this one was much more obviously pregnant than any of the others I've noticed. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
She kind of looked her face was fuller and stuff like that. This must have been near to the the end of her time. There's Scully finds out a bit more about Dwayne Barry in this, doesn't he? That he's he was on a stakeout and he got shot with his own gun. They kind of indicate he might have shot himself, but there's some weird factors going on here. And we also find out he was a negotiator himself, so he knows negotiation. He knows the art of negotiation. Probably the hardest kind of person to negotiate with because they know what you're going to say. And she also finds out that the accident changed his personality and he became like a kind of manic, and his morality disappeared. That's not a feeling I got from this character. Did you?
No, I thought that it just seemed very. It didn't seem very genuine with the character.
Yeah, that bit of the writing was a little weak, though the rest of it I thought was really good. The suggestion that he'd lost his moral compass didn't come through in his words or actions, really. He was obviously quite stressed about what was going on to some of the characters. So that becomes more apparent, I think, in the second episode. But he wasn't that happy with the whole hostage. He was letting people go at certain points, that needed to be let go on. Anyway, Mulder gets in there, and then it becomes really interesting because Mulder's doesn't seem. This is where we get like bad Mulder. He's not that concerned with the hostages and stuff. He's more concerned with trying to find out about what Dwayne Barry went through. It's his search for that. It becomes his focus rather than saving people's lives. At one point, Dwayne Barry mentions that he saw young girls being experimented on, I believe, and he also mentions the tests they did on him were quite painful, and you can see that kind of gets to Mulder quite significantly, thinking about his sister. And there was another interesting cutscene where he says not only were the aliens working on him, the government were involved. And we see another scene with him surrounded by aliens and two men in suits in the doorway, men in black kind of suits in the doorway watching on. I found that a really cool scene as well. There was a very striking imagery in this.
Yeah.
Was there any bits you didn't like?
I didn't actually like the use of the aliens. I believe it was... they used child actors, but I just thought it would have been much darker and much more effective if they hadn't have actually shown the aliens, and they show them again in the second part of this this two-parter, and it just didn't work for me.
Really, I really liked it. I thought it was really cool. I think they were good outfits as well, and that sort of helps to sell it. No, I like that. But the thing is, we were getting it from Dwayne Barry's point of view, weren't we? Telling the story of it. So, in a way, it doesn't prove they were there or not. It's his memories of it.
Yeah.
I did notice that he did sort of vacillate between, first person and third person. And when he kept talking about, Dwayne Barry, it kind of reminded me of like a rapper or something. Dwayne Barry does this and all this kind of stuff. We're getting Krychek in this as well, haven't we? He's in with it. Scully turns up and asks where Mulder is, and Krychek says, he's trading himself for one of the hostages. And Scully's like, what? Kind of thing. Scully's sort of going, no, you got to get him out there. He's not what he says he is, and all this thing. Well, they try and treat it like a sort of special, massive revelation that it's part of the story, but it's fine. He's the guy. What did you think of his performance? Dwayne Barry's performance.
I thought it was fantastic. He was, the way he kind of turns. I know what you say about the personality issue, but he was very subtle in the way that he had, different levels of emotion and such. And I believe that it was based on the true story of Phineas Gage, who was a soldier who underwent a personality change after an accident drove an iron rod through his head.
Yes, I read about this too. Yes, it's quite an old case, wasn't it?
Yeah, and
personality changed.
And, the use of, like you say, referring to himself in the third person, I think that kind of plays into that. And that could have been explored much more, but it really wasn't. It just kind of seems to be tacked on. But even so, with the character, I thought, he was, the actor was mesmerising. Every time he was on screen, I didn't quite know where he would go next. And you do believe him. I think you're in kind of Mulder's position, and you do tend to believe him, even though you say, you said the flashbacks and such are from his perspective, so they could just be in his mind. I think the audience is kind of placed to believe him because of his the acting. Yeah,
you get a real feeling of his distress and his total belief in what he's saying, which sells it as being true. Yeah, absolutely. Steve Railsback was really good in this. I'm surprised he wasn't in more, actually. I guess he was in quite a lot, but we didn't see him that much. He reminded me of Tommy. What's his name? The guy that was. This is really nice. Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
He reminded me of him a bit.
He does. He has a look of him.
Yeah, and I've seen this guy not that long ago in something else, and it was only when I checked his sort of backlog of work that I realised it was him. He played Charles Manson in the 1976 TV movie Helter Skelter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and as soon as I read that, I said, oh, yeah, that was him. Yes. But because it's a different kind of character and actor. I mean, they're both kind of manic, but it's, he's Charles Manson. He's not the same as Dwayne Barry at all. It's not that kind of different kind of crazy. Though I do think they reference it, I think in the second film where Mulder sees Charles Manson pop up on a TV screen, so I think that might be a slight Easter egg there. We get Krychek in this. Krychek gets another slap. Krychek gets slapped down by everyone, really, about this. At one point, he rolls up and offers to help to Agent Cassidy and goes, look, whatever I can do, I'll help. And she says, get your notepad out. This is really important. And he does. And she starts giving him an order for different coffees. Like, I'll have a so-and-so latte, and he'll have... And they're like, Krychek's like, oh, everyone hates me. Kind of look at his face. He gets no breaks in this, but, he deserves it. We find out he deserves it in the end. Well, we know at this point anyway, don't we?
Yeah.
And then towards the end of the episode, Mulder kind of says to Dwayne Barry, is everything you've said true? And Barry kind of goes nutso at that point, doesn't he? He starts really, like he's going to really crack off. And at this point, Mulder does something very odd. He basically tells him he needs to go lock the front door, knowing that's an opportunity for a sniper to take him down. Now, I wasn't sure if Mulder was frightened for himself, the hostages, or realised that, Barry had gone completely sort of tonto at this point, or what. I wasn't sure. It wasn't clear from the right in Mulder's motivations at that point, other than Barry was going really starting to work himself up.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Yeah, because he did save him before, didn't he? He asked him to come away from the door at an earlier point, and did actually save him so he could get more information out of him. So I don't think that he doesn't care about the hostages, because I think if it came to it, their lives would be the most important thing, but he does kind of risk everybody's lives to get the information he wants. He's that kind of desperate, as we know. And I think, like you say, he's just realised at this point he's not going to get any more out of him.
Yeah, it could be that, yeah. After all this, it kind of winds down a bit, but Kasdan calls in Mulder to talk about it. I think he thinks he's going to get shouted at. I can't remember exactly, but
he does, yeah, which is a great turn to her character. It really kind of shapes and defines her character further, I think.
Yes, it does. That she's got a bigger, she's slightly more open to sort of stuff. Not open, but she's better rounded than she first appears. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and she's very perceptive in that she knows that Mulder would want that information.
Yeah. And what she does is she tells him that they have found metal pieces within Dwayne Barry, in his sinuses and his abdomen. There's holes in his teeth that can't be done with current sort of dentist tools. And we do see a shot earlier of him being operated on that's very nasty, actually. They're drilling into his teeth. Really, I really like that. I thought you could kind of see him sweating and his mouth was twitching like it had been held open way too long, which felt really genuine. This guy kind of really nailed it for that kind of horrible stuff going on. She gives Mulder a piece, which he gives a piece of the shrapnel or whatever it is, and she goes to Scully. He gives it to Scully, and she sees there's some sort of weird pattern on it, and then she just happens to go buy some groceries and notice they're checking the barcodes. So she kind of just slips a bit of metal in the barcode while the shop assistant is out of the way, and the machines start going nuts. That's kind of a weird bit of shorthand, that is. It made me laugh. And then Scully legs it, doesn't she, when she wrecks their computers. And she calls Mulder, telling him she thinks Barry's might have been catalogued. This was all pretty cool. Not one, like I've already mentioned about the dentistry, not one if you're not crazy about dentists this episode.
No, not at all.
You would not like it. And Chris Carter, I thought he did a pretty good job directing this. And apart from the stuff about Dwayne Barry having no moral centre, which didn't ring true at all, I think it was a very well written story actually from Chris Carter, and he kind of eased off on the crazy throwing everything in stuff that he often does. And there were some nice artsy shots. There was a really nice shot, for example, where we see Barry running down a corridor. I think it's at the beginning when he's getting out of the hospital. It's when he's escaping from the hospital near the end. There's some really sort of artistic, nice shots. I really liked it.
Yeah.
But then we get a really goofy end. Well, not goofy. Basically, Scully gets kidnapped, but she's got time to leave Mulder an answer phone message just as it's happening, but it's her choice of words that were kind of goofy. She says, "Mulder, I need your help." Not, he's going to get me. Or, you would not say if someone was about to attack you and kidnap you, "I need your help." That kind of made me laugh.
It did me too.
I did like this episode. I think it's a very solid one. We're getting more possibly into the mythology. This is kind of almost like a side step to the main mythology, isn't it? I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Though it meets it again in the second one. So I thought it was a really effective and cool episode. And a nice one for episode 5, I think. It kind of worked well for me. Have you got anything else to say about it?
No, I'd just say, like you, I enjoyed it, and I thought it was quite tense. But where the X-Files does a really good job normally of kind of straddling two lines where, you didn't... maybe not until the end, but it doesn't say whether it's supernatural or scientific or whatever. It just didn't work, those two elements here. I always thought he was, he'd been abducted. I didn't think, oh yeah, it's definitely the psychopathic pathological condition. So that bit just didn't work quite well. But it's a shame, like you say, because there wasn't an overpowering sense of different themes in this. It could have worked really nicely if they'd have played off each other a bit more, those two ideas.
Yeah, it was. I think the act was too good. You know what? He really sold it, didn't he? He really sold it. He was just too convincing. So that was it. What would you? Let's rate this one, and then we'll move on to the second part. What would you give this out of 10?
7.
7. I'll give it an 8. I liked it a little better than that, but it's closer to 7 than 9 for me, if that makes sense. So I think we're kind of mostly in agreement there. So let's take a little break. And have a little bit of music to something a bit lighter, I think, to lead us into Ascension.
Baby, like you and I, it's gonna be alright. But when my sky clouds over, lift me up. When the day is over, take me up. When the sun is gone, show me I will be your angel now. Lift me up when the lights are fading down. When I'm flying way up high, and I'll be your angel for life. Angel for life.
Right, so something nice and summary there. I was really tempted. I was really tempted to play the theme from Moonraker there, because there's an entire action sequence where they're swinging from the tops of ski lifts, which kind of reminded me of James Bond fighting Jaws in Moonraker. But I didn't go with it in the end. So this is the second part of Ascension. Now, not written by Chris Carter, written by Paul Brown. I don't think the name doesn't ring a bell in other X-Files stuff, but maybe when we get into it, it'll pop up again. Directed by Michael Lange, and aired for the first time in the US on the 21st of October 1994. Now, I've noticed that these episodes are now weekly. They kind of settled down. I think the X-Files was a phenomenon at this point, or getting to be a phenomenon, so they gave it a much more regular sort of slots, I think. Quite different from the first one, wasn't it?
It was, and I think, I was quite surprised to learn that it was written and directed by a completely different person, considering, like you say, it's a sequential two-parter.
I'm sure that it was basically based on, notes from Chris Carter, though. It must have been,
Oh, completely, but it's just the fact that, you'll get those very slight tonal, stylistic, whatever differences.
Yeah. It's a kind of a dark episode. Even though there's some goofy stuff going on in the middle with the ski lifts, it's kind of it's got some dark themes in it. When we got Krychek doing his business too, but basically we get Mulder figuring out where Dwayne Barry may have taken Scully. Basically, is it where he says the first place? It's kind of pretty obvious where he's taken her, frankly. But we also get some footage we get that whole scene with the cop, which I thought was terrific. Which again shows us Dwayne Barry has got a moral core, because he's basically saying, please leave me alone. Don't make me do this. And he shoots him. But he opens his boot. This is I think it's recorded from the cop car. On video. When he opens the boot, we get Scully's face showing in the picture, and it's funny because it's like grainy footage, and they use that special FBI software they've got that when they zoom in, everything gets way sharper from rubbishy old video. Yeah, anyway, but it's Scully looking a bit kind of. She almost the face she's pulling almost reminds me of when you see Fay Ray in King Kong films, like looking to the side and looking shocked kind of thing. But she's lying down, sort of looking up. It was kind of that thing. Mulder finds her cross. Basically, we see Scully's mother, don't we, in this one? And Mulder finds her cross, and he gives it over and he says, "This is something I never considered about her. She was such a skeptic, but actually, she has talked about religion in previous episodes, so there was a bit of like continuity error there. She was talking about it in the episode. Lazarus, was it? The one about
Yes,
the
I believe
religious,
so.
the guy that raised the guy from the dead at the beginning. Yeah, she talked about being a Catholic, didn't she? In that.
Yeah.
And the mother says, yeah, well, I gave it to her when she was 15. Mulder wants to give it back, and Margaret Scully says, no, when you find her, you give it to her. Like, she doesn't want to, she wants, you know, she thinks she's going to come back. She wants to believe she's going to come back. So Mulder figures out where it is, but I can't remember why they decide not to tell Skinner. I think it's going.
He thinks that Mulder's too close to the case to be involved.
That's the old TV standby of, you know, the boss telling someone not to carry on. It's giving them a bit of like, bit of rebel about.
Yeah.
Now they go up to where they think it's going to be, and there's a guy running the cable cars. But instead of driving, they figure out that taking the cable cars will be quicker. They go and see the cable car guy. No, he says, no, I've only just put new lines on. You know, it's not safe for a person to go up there. We need to test it first. Mulder doesn't show his badge or anything. He just gets a gun out or shows his gun and says, yeah, well, I'm going up there. And they go, okay. Yeah. It's like, all right, calm down, Mulder. You know. And then we get Mulder going up, and then we get a bit of cable car shenanigans. Krychek takes out the operator. We find out later on he killed him and dumps the body. The body just disappears. It's like, well, they don't say that, but it's kind of obvious that's what Krychek's done. So Mulder then has to climb out, and there's a bit of fun going on there. Finally gets onto the mountain. It's dark. There's a bright light, which could be anything, but looks like a helicopter to me, but it could be a UFO. And he finds Barry, who's like super manic about the fact that he's not been taken, that Scully's been taken. And then another copter finds them. It looks suspiciously like the one that's just left, but I don't think it is. Well, I know it isn't because Scully's not in it. So basically, he swapped Scully for himself, isn't he? He thinks he's avoided the aliens taking him by taking Scully there. I mean, this was his quest at the beginning of part one, wasn't it? He wanted the psychiatrist to go up there with him, kind of thing, or he was sort of intimating that. We see Mulder start questioning Dwayne Barry, and he puts a choke on him, which is very un-Mulder. Seems a bit odd. It's felt almost more like Dirty Harry talking to the Scorpio killer than Mulder questioning Dwayne Barry to me. But serves the story. But it's here. This was really interesting because it's almost like Mulder's heart he's got in his head that perhaps Dwayne Barry killed Scully as part of his psychosis.
Yeah.
So basically, it's almost to me like when things really get tough, does he like just dump his belief system? Because does he accept that reality is, is the way to go rather than, his belief system that doesn't quite hold up? What do you think? What did you make of it?
Yeah, it was a little bit strange, especially because Scully's mum is so adamant that she's still alive and she had that dream. That is something that Mulder would normally kind of cling to.
Yeah.
That spiritualism, he's very open-minded, and I think that would have given him, the belief that she is alive. But so it is a bit strange, but and also we get a really interesting shot here whereby Dwayne Barry sees government officials by the window, similar to the ones that were stood in the doorway when he was surrounded by aliens.
Yeah, we do. I've forgotten that. Good point. Yeah. That was kind of hard to explain in any sense, other than he was delusional.
Exactly, and then obviously when Mulder turns around, that there's nobody there. And I thought that was quite a little bit creepy, actually.
Yeah, it kind of indicates to the audience that he was delusional rather than it was real. Some of it was delusional anyway, for sure. But I found it really interesting that Mulder kind of started really worrying that Scully might be killed by this man rather than and he kind of sucked her into it because he went along with Barry at the beginning, you know, because he wanted to hear his story.
Yeah.
He wanted to find out more about his sister, maybe. But then after this chokehold and Mulder like calms down and leaves, we find that Dwayne Barry's died of asphyxiation, which is like really points the finger at Mulder. And the other odd thing is, it's not the autopsy isn't done by the FBI. It's done by the Navy, which was I didn't quite get.
No,
because they're not by the sea. You know what are the Navy doing? And then we see Krycek and the cigarette smoking man, and Krycek, you know, was talking about taking Scully out and stuff like this, and cigarette smoking man basically said, you know, just back up Mulder. And I think there's this kind of debate about, you know, why don't we kill him? And it's one of these, you know, we don't want to make a martyr kind of thing. But the cigarette smoking man does say we've taken care. He uses words like this: "We've taken care of Scully," which suggests whatever's happened to her, he has been complicit in, which is a really interesting bit of the myth arc.
Yeah.
So. Cigarette smoking man's in cahoots with aliens or people pretend to be aliens or whatever it is. Does he actually use the lines, you know, there's a way of solving problems when they're talking about Scully? Or is that from an earlier episode? I'm trying to remember now. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Then Mulder, you know, has to face a committee because of the you know, he put a chokehold on someone who then died of asphyxiation. That's Mulder starts going on about it's the autopsy is a cover up. He's been poisoned. And someone actually says to him, "Why are you so paranoid?" He says, "Because I find it hard to trust anyone." Which is, we know it. Well, is it? Mulder seems to trust everyone. And this is reflected in an episode way down the line from this where he actually says, I've changed it to, you know, trust no one to trust everyone, which feels about true. What do you think of the scene with Scully being kind of operated on with a swollen belly? What do you think of that one?
That was, I mean, obviously it plays into her pregnancy, but that was really, I wasn't expecting it at all, especially with the swollen stomach, because it doesn't explain that at all.
No.
At any point, and you get more of the kind of equipment, which was quite interesting. And it kind of fed into Dwayne Barry's, we think it's hallucinations. So it kind of, again, draws that line and says, no, this is actually real.
Yeah, I mean, Dwayne Barry's dead now, so this is not, the scene we're seeing can't be Dwayne Barry's imaginings, presumably. So it must have happened. You don't quite see the figures kind of look alien-esque, but they're kind of silhouettes, aren't they? So they might be men watching it. It's kind of hard to work out.
Yeah, it's slightly more realistic in that way, isn't it? It's not as obvious as it was in
which
Dwayne
would have worked
Barry's.
better, perhaps, in the first one, you know, with Dwayne Barry. Actually,
That's what I was thinking.
it would have given. I mean, the scene with the dentist stuff did look like a similar setup to when we see Scully on her back. The scene where he's in the bed surrounded by aliens is a different sort of setup entirely.
Yeah.
Mulder goes off to see Senator Matheson, but X stops him and says, "You're not getting no more info here." He says, "There's only one policy around here: deny everything." Now Mulder just happens to have borrowed Krycek's car, and when he goes back, he finds cigarette stubs in the ashtray. And claims that he knows it's the cigarette smoking man because it's his brand. I think he's calls them Marley's or something. So it turns out they really have some shortcuts in this one. Basically, Krycek's disappeared, and you know it's implicated that he was trying to kill Mulder and this, that, and the other. The man operating the ski lifts has disappeared. So Krycek, you know, we kind of lose Krycek at this point in terms of him being like a mole. Which is a shame. I thought that was a bit of a waste.
Yeah, they could have expanded that, I think.
Yeah.
But interesting playing his character in the car. You know, he refers to Mulder very much when he's speaking to the smoking man. He says, you know, I want to know. I think I deserve to know after what I've done for you. So it kind of hints at the lift operator that he was potentially his first kill.
Because he's gotten deeper. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and that he wants answers, and the cigarette smoking man says, no, you we tell you what to do. And again, he gets put down as usual.
Everyone seems to not think much of Krychek, and he kind of does get a bit of a kick in. Cigarette smoking man really puts him down, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, but that was just a nice kind of touch to his character to show, this is the level of commitment, for him wanting answers like Mulder, but Mulder would never do that. Mulder draws the line.
Yeah. That's not something I'd considered about Krychek. I just thought he was like a sort of fairly clever goon rather than that.
Well, he says a few times in the short time he's, the few episodes that he's on his scenes with Mulder, I want to believe. Yeah. So he seems very much down that line.
Either he's a good actor or he's got the same mindset as Mulder and can tap into that. And the second seems more likely to me, actually. He says things that sound too real to be sort of not faked, but for someone to have come up with if they lack that empathy. Let's put it that way. It was a really good scene with Mulder and Skinner where they actually talk man to man for a change. Instead of Skinner just being angry at him, where basically he looks at Mulder and says, is she dead? And they talk more like equals instead of Skinner shouting at him.
No, it was a really nice turning point there and really started to define his character. That's why I really started to like Skinner more.
Yes. This is I think this is the one where we see Skinner's. I mean, we get clear hints that Skinner's not on the side of the cigarette smoking man, but this is the point where he actually actively, much more actively turns against him. And Krychek just disappeared, and he just preemptively says, "Right, X-Files are open. It's because the bad boys, bad guys we'll do what the bad guys don't want to do. We're gonna reopen the X-Files. That's what they fear." Kind of thing. Yeah. Whoa, all right. So we suddenly get the X-Files open. Which is cool. Mulder's really mad about the fact they can murder, people like Krychek can just murder with impunity and stuff like that. I'm trying to think. I was a bit sad that Krychek was just given up so easily, as a potential, bit of paranoia through this series, but he does come back, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, what would you rate this one out of 10? And have you got any final thoughts?
I think I give this a 7 again, and I think it's a very nice kind of complimentary watch, obviously with the other part, but those slight tonal and stylistic differences do set them apart, and I think I actually preferred this one to the first episode, even though I'd rate them the same.
Yeah, I rate this one 7, same as you, though I rated the other one slightly higher. I thought they were both decent, and I liked the fact that they were so different.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool. I thought it was a bit shame that Dwayne Barry went out like a light in this one. That was a bit of a shame. Otherwise I kind of liked it. Certainly like some of the touches, like Mulder and Skinner talking, and Krychek and the cigarette smoking man talking. I thought there were some good scenes in there, so it was kind of cool. Okay, let's wind up that one, and we're going to get into a slightly more steamy one next. Let's have a little break, and we're going to get on to 3. Okay, so 3. Now, I've sometimes see this one referred to as Trinity as well. I don't know if that's like legit or if in certain areas it's called Trinity. But I saw some places reference this as Trinity instead of 3. But mostly it's called 3. Now, this was written by Chris Ruppenthal. Glenn Morgan and James Wong were involved, which kind of surprised me once I've watched it. Directed by David Nutter, who, you know, is a stalwart of X-Files direction. You know, he's directed things like Ice and stuff like that. It was first broadcast in the US on the 4th of November 1994. And do you know what my first note says? Scully's gone for 1 week and it's vampires. That's what I wrote. Yeah, this is the vampire one. Right, okay. This is the one that I thought was going to be Blood, but, you know, because Blood was the title, but I was wrong. Blood was a completely different thing. What do you think of this one?
I really like this one. I mean, we have... It's so different, and we have a really unusual dynamic in that we get Mulder on his own.
Yeah. That was kind of, the first Pucker X-Files case after they've been reinstated, and it's Mulder on his own, which was a little odd. It did throw the dynamic right off somewhat, and that's not to say it's a bad thing to do that. It was just a completely different dynamic as far as I felt from the, you know, when it's the two of them looking at stuff. Pretty raunchy stuff.
Yeah.
I had a bit of a problem in that some of the vampires kind of look the same.
Is it all the hair, I think?
Yeah, it's all this hair and big growly guys, you know. I did like the beginning, the woman's with this slightly older guy, and she says, I'll do things with you you've never done. And immediately they get in a hot tub, and it's like, right, if you've got a hot tub in your house, you've definitely never things you've never done. It doesn't include getting in a hot tub, you know what I mean? But given the way the plot developed, I was a bit confused by all this, because, like, was she with them, or was she trying to get away with it? Was she acting as bait? I didn't quite understand that first scene. I don't think it really matters. It's more, this felt more like a mood play than a coherent story. Do you know what I mean? It felt more like, oh, this cool stuff's happening, kind of thing. But maybe I'm being a bit dismissive. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite confused, but there's 2 women, isn't there?
What?
There are 2. Is it true that there's
No.
2 women?
Well, there is, but one of them we don't see until right at the end.
That's the thing. So I thought that was her.
No. You could be right. I mean, it was kind of a confusing episode.
That's what I'm saying. Definitely, I agree with you. It really was confusing, but I thought that it was the main woman who Mulder has a bit of a thing with, that she wasn't involved at all in any of that.
I thought that was her at the beginning. Wow. I need to go back and watch this episode. I'm sure it was... Oh, man, you've really got... I don't know now. I'm really confused. That would explain that bit of plotting, because I thought I didn't get it at all.
And she's in the club, and she's into the drinking of the blood and all that, but it's completely a sexual consensual thing with people. She's not hurting anybody.
Yeah. I kind of like this episode much. I mean, a lot of this one often gets dumped right down as like the worst ever episodes, doesn't it? It seems to be. Reading up on it, and I was really surprised because I liked it way better than that. I liked it way better than Space, for example. Though it had real problems, but I found it quite entertaining. Not quite in the kind of same way that sometimes Bits of Fire are into. You know, we have to mention Phoebe Green. We always mention Phoebe. In the same way that's entertaining, though, I do like. Obviously, I like Fire a lot more than this one, but it's got that kind. I think because it's kind of a bit raunchy, it's kind of fun. You know what I mean? There was one moment I really liked at the beginning where Mulder's, you see him writing up about Scully and putting her into the X-Files, her missing. Yeah. That was kind of cool.
That was.
Did you notice Mulder's calendar in that scene?
No, what did it say?
No, you'll have to go back and watch. Oh. No, it's just a bit saucy, I think. Mulder sort of gets called out because there's writing on the wall with biblical references, which is kind of Manson-y, isn't it?
Yes.
There's a line in this that I think is great that Mulder says. He says, these killers have the same feeble, literal grasp with the Bible as those big-head preachers. That about sums up some sort of religious people to me. It feels like when you take a literal grasp of the Bible, you're not getting it. That's my kind of feeling sometimes. And he actually says to the cop, pretty much gives us pretty much spot on ad hoc profile. He says they see themselves as a trinity, they're this, that and the other, and he kind of gets it spot on straight away, just having a look around. I have to say that I felt this episode was kind of inspired a bit by The Hunger. Have you seen the film The Hunger?
Yes. Yeah, it definitely had the kind of sexual...
I think it was a vampire. There was something in the air in the late 80s and early 90s where there was this kind of moody vampire stuff. There was the Hunger. There was Interview with the Vampire. I think came out sometime around this as well. And there was a few others. There's one slightly more obscure one called The Addiction, which kind of feeding into this kind of vibe too. I think David Nutter watched a lot of noir films and wanted to sort of experiment. There was a lot of noirish elements in this for me.
Yes, with is it Kristen? Kristen. Yeah, definitely. Her character is very much a femme fatale, I believe.
It was definitely was it Body Heat kind of vibe. They were going for it. It didn't quite work because it's TV. They can't show much. It's kind of they could try and do and get that sort of breathless, sort of horny Mulder stuff going on. And it's funny that vampire thing's led on to other stuff that's kind of similar, like True Blood and stuff like Penny Dreadful.
Yeah.
But not Twilight so much. And they catch one of the guys, don't they? He's robbing a blood bank, which made me think of Kolchak, actually.
Yeah,
the Night Stalker. He was robbing blood banks, wasn't he? And his name's John, and he says he's the son, and the other two are the Father and the Unholy Spirit. So the wife or whatever mother is the Unholy Spirit. Nice there.
Yeah.
Mulder kind of starts running intellectual rings around him and says, "Oh yeah, like you're a vampire, and all this," and like doesn't really believe him. And he insists he can't be seen looking in a mirror, and he says, only. He says, "I can't die now. There's only one. The only ones that can kill me are like looking after me and all this." And he says, "Well," and Mulder says, "Well, if you are what you say you are, I know what can kill you." And he does, thinking he won't, obviously, but. And Mulder gets a few Muldery quips, doesn't he? At one point, he says, the son says, "Don't you want to live forever?" He says, "Nah, not if drawstring pants come back in style." And there's a few other lines like, the guy's trying to be moody and intellectual. Mulder's like, what? He says, "Does a snake commit murder when it eats a fly?" And he says, "But frogs eat flies." And stuff like that. He's basically not taking any of this until the bloke bursts into flames.
Yeah.
There was a kind of cool pathologist in this who, works out an old trick. Shows him Mulder an old pathologist trick, and managed to lift off the scabs off the burnt out body to see a tattoo called the Club Tepes.
Yes, nice reference there.
Yeah. And they end up in another 90s club. With these, I don't know, these clubs that they showed in the X-Files, they don't seem much fun. They seem like it's that posers. They're all posers.
Yeah.
Then he has like this bizarro flirting session with Kristen in the club. She says, what's normal? It's all that. It's kind of teenage goth talk. That's how it felt to me. Do you know what I mean? I like red wine and all this kind of stuff. What did you think?
Yeah, it was a bit strange. And then she kind of had this almost psychic claim where she's like, "You've lost someone, not a lover, a friend," kind of thing.
Ugh. He didn't seem much perturbed about that. He didn't react to it much. She's what was I going to say about her? I think If I remember rightly, I think David Duchovny, this actress was his girlfriend at the time.
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
This is a recurring thing in the series.
No, yeah.
He gets his girlfriend jobs, doesn't he? They've got some chemistry. I did laugh that they had some sexy shaving time where she shaved him. Wow. Is that... that must have been a thing about it, it doesn't seem very sexy to me, but it's more like nervous. But
No.
Mulder, she basically leaves with some bloke, and Mulder follows them, and it turns out that they're into, like, I don't know, do they call it blood sports or something? Drinking each other's blood or something. It's a bit grim. And the bloke gives him a bit of a kicking, doesn't he? He finds Mulder kind of spying him, and he says, look, we're consenting adults, and then he goes back, Mulder wanders off, and then he gets, like, loads of vampires attack him. So again, was she bait? What was going on there?
I just took it that they were following her and they'd actually hunted her down because not the son, the father is in the club watching her.
Right.
So therefore, wherever she's gone
that.
to, because they find out, Mulder finds out that Kristen Farmer lived in Memphis and Portland where previous ritual murders took place. And I think it's them following her, trying to get her back and obviously committing the murders in each place, but she didn't actually have anything to do with it.
Right, so they're doing the murders after. So he comes back and she's gone, maybe, and then they attack. It's got, because there's other hints in the dialogue later where it sounds like they've been talking to her and trying to persuade her to join them. So
I think maybe they've kind of caught up with her in various points, but she's managed to get away.
Right. I felt the chemistry between Mulder. How does Mulder put it? He did the wild thing in this one, I'm pretty sure, with Kristen. So there's a bit of that going on. I felt the chemistry between these two were better than, say, Mulder and Phoebe Green.
I don't know. There's something special there.
You wish. I did notice that Mulder was wearing Scully's cross.
Yeah, and that's really
Nice
interesting
touch.
that, exactly, that the one episode that she's kind of away, he does the wild thing.
Yeah. Woo. Then she starts telling him how she got into this blood stuff. She says her boyfriend hit her, she bit his lip, they liked the taste. It sounds really nuts. And I thought, is this really a thing? And I looked into it. Yeah, it is. Some people do this. It's whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's like
Now it's strangers folk.
yeah. And again, we get some really. I was laughing at some of the dialogue. There's one bit she actually goes, "I like death," and I thought, "Oh my god, it's like listening to teenagers trying to be, cool and moody." Yeah, it was very confusing to me. I just think, is she part of them? Is she not? What's going on? And anyway, they kind of persuade her to join, or they try, and she don't. She sets them all on fire and herself, and Mulder's a bit cut up about it, but that's it really. I'd say I'd define this episode as a hot mess. Really, it's kind of fun. Doesn't work really, but it is fun. I was entertained. Let's put it that way. But you really liked it. Come on, let's tell us all. Why did you like it so much?
Well, I really thought that it is confusing, but, trying to work it out afterwards, like I say, I do believe that they were following her and he was trying to get her back because she wasn't into, obviously, the murder. She says to Mulder at one point that, he took it too far when he brought people back one day. It was just kind of between them at one point initially, and she refers to the backstory being beaten up by her dad as well, so she's kind of had this abusive relationship with men for years. That's all she's ever known, so it could have been quite realistic in one sense, despite all of the mythology of the kind of vampire storyline.
Yeah. But
like you say, it becomes quite convoluted and quite strange. But I did quite like that aspect, and also, like you said, the son's dialogue and his proclamations of he'll live forever and all that, and at the same time Mulder's running rings around him, and he gets out a mirror and we can see his reflection, even though he says that he can't be seen in a mirror, the usual tropes of vampirism. But the fact that he dies when sunlight touches him, I thought was really interesting. And then when they do the medical kind of examiner, refers to it. Is it kind of when you believe something so strongly that your body reacts in a physical way?
Yeah, there was some suggestion of that. They also talked about porphyria as well. Though, you don't burst into flames with porphyria. You do react quite strongly, but you don't burst into flames. So there was a bit of that. Yeah, there was some interesting... Let's put it this way. This episode didn't bore... There's been a few episodes we've watched which have been a bit boring. They almost every episode that has at least one or two scenes that is worth watching. This one had lots of scenes that I thought were fun, but it wasn't a coherent narrative. But like as a mood piece, it worked for me. I liked it well enough. I just thought it didn't hang together as an episode, and like I say, there was a bit of dialogue. I was like, oh my god, it's like this to teenagers. There was a bit of that, but I thought it was decent enough, and it's kind of fun to see Mulder, getting a bit for a change. Okay, let's rate this one. And any final thoughts? What would you give this out of 10?
I give it 8 for entertainment value.
Whoa! 8. Wow! You're going against the grain now. Like I say, this tends to be second only to Space, like rated as the worst one. No, I don't agree with that rating at all, I have to say. But yeah, well, fine. You liked it. It's very memorable. I haven't seen this one in years, and I remembered quite a lot of it, I have to say.
Yeah.
But like I say, it's almost like it was memorable in certain... You could remember certain scenes, but in terms of plot, it felt like... Yeah, I can't tell you the plot, really. In terms of coherent step-by-step plot, how that woman was there and all this. Yeah. Okay, I'd give it a 4 out of 10. It was just below average, though it was quite entertaining. It was entertaining in its own way. Okay, any final thoughts on that, or should we move on to the next one?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, we'll have a little break, and then we'll get into One Breath.
Every breath you take, and every move you make, every bond you break, every step you take, I'll be watching you. Every single day, and every word you say, every game you play, every night you stay, I'll be watching you.
Okay, so One Breath. This was written by Glenn Morgan and James Wong, directed by R.W. Goodwin, and first aired on the 11th of November 1994. I really liked this episode. I will say off the bat. I like this opening. There was an opening where Mrs. Scully's telling a story about Dana and her brothers shooting a snake, and how she cried once she realised what they'd done. She'd been given a gun and told not to shoot at any living things, but her brothers had kind of started shooting at a snake, and she joined in and then realised what she'd done. It was kind of a quite touching opening. What did you think?
Yeah, and unusual, quite different to what we've seen. This it's a very kind of dreamlike, surrealist episode in parts. This episode, and that was an interesting way for it to open and give you quite an insight into Dana's character.
Yeah, there were certain elements of it, like you say, it was unusual. It was almost like nostalgic's not the right word. It's almost like trying to get to a state of remembering something in the best possible way. Maybe.
Yes, yeah, that's a good way of, especially because she's actually considering Scully's mum at the time to, basically letting her daughter go.
Yeah, and then she actually also, there's also a part where she shows Mulder Scully's gravestone, which seems weird. But I guess she's been missing for some time at this point.
It almost feels like it's jumbled up and that this is a later scene in the episode that's been put at the beginning.
Yeah, I figured it was something like we were getting a hint that the mother had finally given up waiting for her daughter to turn up. That's kind of how I felt. But then it jumped to something completely different, which was really odd, which is, was it me or was Mulder watching porn when we first see it? It certainly seemed like it. Did you feel that?
I thought that too.
Yeah, well, which is pretty bold for a 90s TV show. And we get some great moments in this. It has to be said. They've kind of jumbled up in my head because they could be cut in almost any order, actually. But essentially, Mulder turns up. Scully turns up at a hospital, comatose. And at first, Mulder goes completely bananas. Saying, what do you mean she's just here? Who brought her here? And all this, that, and the other. And he goes bananas. And it's almost like Mulder's avoiding spending any time with Scully because he wants to stay active because it makes him feel like he's doing something rather than just standing by. Which is a very human thing. People do that sometimes when they need to just be there for someone. They'll start making themselves busy and stuff like that, just to sort of avoid that moment when they have to really think about it. What do you think?
Yeah, again, we're getting that kind of emotional side to Mulder that isn't necessarily what we associate with him, which is quite strange. But this whole episode feels very disjointed. Scully's in a coma, and it very much reflects that notion of disorientation and all different levels of emotions. And it's an interesting episode, and you're kind of enthralled throughout, but it's a very disjointed one for me.
I have to say there's one scene I really liked, which is where we see Don Davis again, Scully's father, who died in Beyond the Sea, actually talking to his daughter as she's laying there, and he's sort of saying, life's too, people say life's too fast, and I never listened, but now I'm listening, and I'd give, so much just to spend one moment, one heartbeat with you. I think it's a really touching scene. And he says, and we'll be together, but not soon, but not now. And he walks off. That, to me, almost felt like a spiritual sequel to Beyond the Sea, in fact. It felt like the message she could have got, in Beyond the Sea.
That's a really nice way of putting it, actually, yeah.
So I really like that. That was my favourite scene in this, and I really like a lot of this episode, I have to say, even though it was disjointed, and there was so much bunged into it. There were so many scenes bunged into this episode where they could have slowed it right down. They didn't. And that kind of was a reflection of Mulder's state. He didn't want to slow down. He wanted to try and... He was angry and wanted to sort of do stuff. I like the stuff where Scully's sitting in a boat and look. I think that was a good representation of, her life in the balance kind of thing. Yeah. She's sitting on a boat in the middle of water, tied down, and looking up at a dock at people. And there was Nurse Owens. Did you notice she was there on the dock whenever there were other people there? And in fact, when there was no one there, she was still there standing on the dock. And that was kind of interesting. And also there was a black nurse that was looking after Scully too, that sort of dealt with Mulder. I thought she was really good. But I recognised that she was... do you remember the episode Shadows? They went to see an angry pathologist who was saying, when you're dead, you're dead. I think it was Shadows. It might have been Roland, actually. But she was certainly in season 1 as a stroppy pathologist. She was good in that, and she popped up in this one. And I like the whole Nurse Owens sort of sitting and talking to Scully, trying to sort of help her to come back. Also, we get Scully's sister. So what do you think of Melissa?
I thought she was great, and it was really nice to see her relationship with Scully's mum, and how different that was. How different she is to Scully. She's so kind of spiritual against Scully's more kind of skeptical nature.
I like the fact Mulder, she annoyed the crap out of Mulder. He wasn't having all this crystal stuff, was he? It's like, it's Mulder. If he doesn't believe it, no one's going to. And he was really angry when she sort of suggested, sometimes you got to let go. And he's like, what? What? It's all this. But Melissa, I had to be mean, but it seemed to me like Melissa couldn't wait to get her in the ground. It was kind of, I know it wasn't like that, but it kind of was like, calm down, let's give her a minute or two.
I think just like because she's, so spiritual and that she just wants her to kind of be at peace. And because we find out that Scully has basically, I think she's signed a will to say that she doesn't want to be left in that state if she's ever, comatose, that she just wants to do whatever she wants for her.
Yeah. And it's very telling that Mulder's was the witness to that will.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting. So he knows what Scully's wishes were, but he's not willing to accept it. Then we get a bit of action in the middle of all this. Someone takes some blood from Scully, and the guy just kind of is hanging around and runs off with the blood, and Mulder chases it, and he gets. Now let me get this right. He gets stopped by X to just let it go, right? And then X basically gets the guy. Well, there's some dialogue, isn't there, where basically, like, X says, "I used to be you, I was where you are now, but." And if you want to go on like this, you kind of are going to have to become me. Have you got what it takes? Do you want to do that? And then he shoots the guy in the head. So, whoa. And tidies up afterwards. So it's, we had this with Deep Throat. Is Mulder's future going to be like being Deep Throat? And now is Mulder's future going to be like being X? And it's kind of an interesting contrast. I'm not quite sure what I was saying with that scene, but it was really good. It was really good.
Yeah, and it kind of really, in terms of X, we had that earlier bit of dialogue from him where he says, I'm not Deep Throat, I'm not going to die for this. And he showed that, his cards, but it shows that obviously he's willing to kill for, the position that he's in, which just really kind of broadens his character and adds, more dimension to him.
Yeah. I mean, I never believe for a minute X. Really believe that, because he does everything exactly the same as Deep Throat. So how can he say I wouldn't go as far as him, because he's doing exactly the same stuff? It's like he's denying it to himself as a character. I'm not saying he's badly written. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying there's something more to that character than I'm not doing that, when he does it all the time.
I think he has less morals than Deep Throat, because Deep Throat was, if we're to believe him, when he spoke about his apparent experience of meeting an extraterrestrial and murdering,
X's motivations are not clear at the minute, are we? Well, we kind of know Deep Throats. What we do see is that, like you say, that X has got less moral. He's got less scruples. I think he's willing to shoot someone in the head rather than have the potential to be identified, maybe, or something like that. It's that kind of thing. Did you like? Now we get the cigarette smoking man turn up in Skinner's office, and Skinner's like, points to the little sign he's got on his desk, "Thank you for not smoking." Did you notice that? And of course, the cigarette smoking man just lights up anyway and puts it straight out. Now, I think that was deliberate. I think cigarette smoking man wanted to do that because he knew Mulder was coming in next, and he wanted that lingering to cast. Basically, it's throwing a bit of uncertainty into the ranks. By knowing Skinner's just talked to him. What's that all about? But then we get this really goofy scene where this woman's saying, "Oh, here's a packet of Marleys," and basically a really convoluted way of Mulder getting the address of the cigarette smoking man. Now, this is the first time Mulder calls him Cancer Man, which he kind of, I don't know. Sometimes he's called Cancer Man, sometimes he's Cigarette Smoking Man. I think in the series when they refer to him, it's usually Cigarette Smoking Man. There's an episode way on, which is actually titled Musings of the Cigarette Smoking Man, I believe, if I remember rightly. But we get Mulder christening him Cancer Man. And he's trying to get some details about it from Skinner, who won't give it up. But it turns out Skinner was the one that gave Mulder the information anyway. But he's saying stuff like, "We're not the mafia, we don't wipe out," which felt a bit corny, that kind of dialogue. But
Yeah.
Kind of what's. What do you think of the scene between Mulder and Cigarette Smoking Man?
That was interesting again because we learn a little bit more about his character. But again, like you say, Mulder's just kind of in a way, he's kind of lost it at this point.
Yeah, it's. Firstly, did you think that was Cigarette Smoking Man's house, or was he in a hotel?
I assumed it was his house.
So, like, Mulder knows where he lives now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like, Mulder's really angry and calling him all sorts of names, and he says, "Don't try and threaten me. I've watched presidents die." It's kind of his response. And he actually, Cigarette Smoker, an interesting bit of character development. He says, "Why her, not me?" And Cigarette Smoker Man says, "Oh, because I like you and I like her. That's why I've given her back to you." It's like, what? What's going on there? Kind of cool. Cool little twist there. I thought though it didn't go anywhere. I thought it was nice for them to have that sort of face off. Actually, basically, Mulder is not going to take it to the limit. He's not going to shoot him. He's not going to torture him to find out stuff. And that kind of makes Mulder toothless in light of it, doesn't it? At this point,
yeah.
We do get the lone gunman turn up in this one too. I mean, this is a busy episode. It
is, yeah.
And we get Frohickey turn up in a weird suit and
bless
a bunch
him.
of flowers, just to steal Scully's medical records, right? Doesn't he say something like, "I sneaked out records in down my pants"? And Mulder says, "There's plenty of room down there." That's not very nice, is it? Yeah, go out their way. And they basically get some super hacker to analyse the blood and find that there's that Scully's been experimented on, and she's dying because of the DNA stuff that's gone on is breaking down or something, and it's causing like some sort of reaction within Scully, which is causing her to die. Boy, these guys are knowledgeable, aren't they? I like there's some other fun. The Smoking Gunmen are fun. They do something like, "Want to come over Saturday night? We're going to nitpick the science of Earth 2." So it was a show on at that time, and Mulder's like, "I'm doing my laundry." It's kind of. And at one point they actually say this technology is not just cutting edge; it's like from the future. It's kind of is their implication. So something really has gone on with Scully there. I like the fact that in the end, X basically says to Mulder, "If you want to catch the guys that might have done this to Scully, you wait at your house; they'll be there. Basically you can kill them." But he decides not to, doesn't he? He goes and sees Scully again.
Yeah.
Instead. But then we get quite a touching scene where he goes back to his apartment afterwards and he's like turned over, isn't it? It's like wrecked. And he just sort of cries. Which is kind of, he's at his lowest, really, at this point. We also get a scene of him resigning. And Skinner refuses to take it, doesn't he? And Skinner gives this story about when he was in Vietnam and he nearly died and stuff like that. Interesting story. Didn't really feed into the stuff much, apart from sometimes you got to pick yourself up again, kind of thing. And Scully finally wakes up, doesn't she? And Mulder brings her a video of Superstars of the Super Bowl. It could have been worse, I suppose.
Could have been porn.
Yeah, exactly. Or better. Depends on your point of view. But she actually says, "I don't remember anything after Dwayne Marry. She's just got no memory." And you know what? I remember this series differently. I remember her kind of remembering stuff quite early on, in episodes pretty much straight afterwards, which hasn't happened, has it? I've watched a few on. It just hasn't happened. She's not sort of remembered anything. So far. It's kind of cool that she asked for Nurse Owens, and Nurse Owens doesn't exist. The nurse there says, "I've worked here for 10 years, there's no Nurse Owens here." So was she like a guardian angel, do you think?
Again, it kind of plays on that. I mean, I think it's a very spiritual episode in, Skinner's, when he recalls his out of body experience, it kind of plays into that. Like you say, it's telling Mulder, he basically says to him that he doesn't want to think anymore on that experience. He just kind of he accepts it. But Mulder is the type of person to ask questions and look further, at situations like that. So it's, you have a purpose here, you need to carry on. And as soon as he kind of says that, I know Mulder goes home and he cries. And it's a really touching scene. But then Scully does wake up, and we have that spiritual connection to the nurse. So it's kind of playing on that, especially because of the fact that she has the cross, and Mulder's been holding on to that for her. So it's a very kind of a spiritual or religious episode.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. There's a lot of spirituality, and it presents it very well, as far as I'm concerned. It worked for me.
Yeah.
It didn't feel corny. It felt like this moved me. I have to say, this episode moved me. I was kind of really entranced by it.
Yeah, that's a really good word, actually. Yeah.
Even like not goofy, but the sort of the little side roads of Skinner's journey, parallels. I think you're quite right. It wasn't a complete, let's just throw this in. It sort of parallels what was going on later in the episode, in a kind of nice way. Well, I think to me the most important line in this was a real throwaway one, which when Scully tells Mulder she doesn't remember anything after Dwayne Barry, he just sort of shrugs and says it doesn't matter. Yeah. That to me sort of summed up that Mulder moved on a little.
Yeah.
From his monomania about, the truth. There are more important things than that. I thought that was really cool. Let's rate this and sort of sum up any last thoughts. What rating would you give this?
I think I'd give this one an 8. Like I said, it feels very disjointed, but I think, using the word entranced, that's a really good word. It is entrancing, and it's quite surreal and dreamlike, but it's moving in quite an emotional way, and looks at the characters it kind of steps back and really assesses the characters as opposed to the general mythology for a change. So I really kind of liked that little pause and that break. Yeah.
It's... for me, I really enjoyed this episode. I think this might be my favourite of season 2 so far, actually. It's close with The Host, I have to say. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. There was just so many moments in it. My favourite scene in it was Don Davis coming back for that soliloquy to his daughter. That was really moving. And it rang completely true. I believe a lot of parents would feel that way. In those circumstances, in certain circumstances. So I found it really touching, and I really enjoyed it. It moved me. Let's put it that way. Okay, shall we? Let's wind up there, and we'll be back with another 4 episodes real soon. So bye from me.
Bye from me.
And remember, they're watching.